think the microphone will reach. Maybe talk about how you came to the place of creating your own press. And how does one do that?
Yeah, so I have been published.
You want this?
Yeah, sure.
So part of it is, I was inspired by small presses that have published my previous books, and so I started publishing back when I lived in Serbia in the 90s, and just had every book was a different experience, with a lot of mishaps pretty much each time, but they appear in the world, and each experience taught me a little bit about publishing. Probably not enough to start a press because I had never worked for a press before, but so RD, or Robin, my friend, and I started talking about starting our own press. In light of those experiences, also given the fact that we knew our friends who had manuscripts that we knew were ready and were not getting picked up by existing presses. Part of it is, the reality is that it's a lot of work to submit your manuscripts and then keep being rejected usually for a long time, and then just keep going, keep trying. And a lot of people who have jobs and children and take care of the elderly, they don't have time for that to invest all that time. And we knew, friends or acquaintances or just poets we liked, we knew that they weren't plugged into the existing publishing avenues, and maybe they weren't even affiliated with academia, which can also open some doors. So there's a lot of good writing that's being produced that's kind of on the margins, and but it doesn't mean that it shouldn't appear, And so we wanted to, we figured, okay, we know a bunch of people who have manuscripts that are polished, that are great, and then how many are there out there who we don't know, who will learn about us and then send us their manuscripts in the future if all this pans out. And so to learn, the process, we published our own books first, and that was like, you go in with a lot of naivete, So we're like, well, we'll publish our own books and then we'll learn everything and then we'll publish other people. You keep learning, of course, with each new book, but it's been a great experience, and we just wanted to interview. We always say, like, we are pressed by the downwardly mobile for the downwardly mobile. That's kind of what we're about. And yes, does that kind of break it? And we started talking about it during the lockdown, and these books appeared this March. So it takes a long time and we wanted to take our time and not rush things and just learn as much as we could. It's print on demand, so there's not we didn't need a lot of money to begin, or really any money to get started, and it's self-funded so far. We are in the process of getting the nonprofit, federal, whatever nonprofit status. We are a nonprofit in the state of Illinois, but right now, yeah, if you buy one of these books or both, that all goes into the production of the upcoming books. So we have Dawn coming out in June, another poet, Mitchell Nobis, who lives in Detroit, also coming out in June, and then Paul is coming out in September, and also Chet Helsel. If you watched Jeopardy yesterday, you saw him competing, and he was in Final Jeopardy but didn't win. Next time, hopefully. And we're reading currently several manuscripts that have reached us through word of mouth, and so yes, that's what's going on.
Anybody have a question for Snezana about starting a press, starting something? You don't have to know what you're doing to start anything.
Yeah,
I think that's the important thing.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
The less you know, the better, probably.
Probably, because you don't know how much.
Right? I mean,
you can't anticipate all the trouble.
And you're not hung up by expectations. You're
Yeah.
just like, let's get it started.
And I wanted to say, in those pens and notebooks, you can write down your information, your email address, and your name, if you'd like, and then pass on a piece of paper, that piece of paper to me, and I'll add you to the mailing list, so that when we, announce, oh, here's a new book that's out, or a new event, or we're open to submissions, you know, that's how we'll communicate with people. Save the date for Dawn's, book launch, which is July 10th, Thursday, July 10th, at 5:30 at the Salzer Library. Put it in your calendar, Dawn, so you don't end up. Yeah, so yeah, any questions for me or for Paul and Dawn?
It's just a little one, but I pre-ordered their books because I was so excited. And I've heard that pre-ordering is really, really helpful for small presses. So throwing that out there so that others hear, and how is it that it helps?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, if you're like, I don't want to buy her book, but I like Dawn's poems or Paul's poems, if you can pre-order from the press, yeah, and we will mail you a copy when it's out, and so yeah, what that does is it's very simple, like it's revenue for us, you know, and then we can, because we also. One of the things that we're doing that usually small presses don't do, especially if they have to have a budget for the costs of printing and all kinds of production that we do through favors and through our volunteer work. Everybody's volunteering. So what happens is, like, we take some of that revenue and buy ads, you know. So that's something that we try to do to spread the word that usually small presses or even academic presses don't do. It's not really in their budget. So yeah, one of the things that Robin brought to the table is she used to work in marketing for Books A Million, which is like a chain of discount bookstores, and so she worked directly with the big 5 publishers and learned how they market and promote, and took notes, and we're gonna try within our tiny budget to copy some of their strategies on that. So that's why that's helpful. So it's thanks for that question and the plug.
Maybe this is for either or both Paul and Dawn, but what was it like for you to participate in the publishing process?
I'll have to defer to Dawn.
Okay.
Because Dawn's further along and started on the process.
It was very interactive and friendly. Like, I always felt that they were open to my emailing them if there were some modification that I thought maybe should be made, and we talked it through. I mean, it's not just up to me, but they also gave me helpful feedback occasionally when there was something I thought should be changed and it actually shouldn't. So it was very mutual and friendly, and it feels like they want me to be proud of the end result, which I really appreciate. They want me to love holding it and reading it, as well as for you all to love that. So I think that that's very different from, say, like a very commercial press, right, where it's going to be very top down, and you might not have much voice in the process, or if you do, at times you might risk alienating or angering somebody. So I'd say that, smaller things, grassroots things, collaborative things, these are where we have community, we work mutually, we all participate and contribute to something. So it was a very welcoming process, and I really appreciate the process, and I really appreciate the aesthetic design. They've designed these covers that are, they're uniform but different. And so we're all part of the collective in that sense too. And I love that aesthetic.
And the covers were designed by Gretchen Hassett. You've seen her stuff around the neighborhood, including the mural called Resilience. It's on the viaduct on Pratt, Glenwood and Pratt. So you've seen that. You've seen like some of her other stuff. And she's a friend, and gave us a low rate for the design. Another friend who's a graphic designer designed their logo, which is, we didn't know, we wouldn't be able to design any of that stuff. That's definitely not in our skill set. But we asked friends, to help, and they did. So that's all, like, at any step of the way, when it's a grassroots thing, like, yeah, it could collapse, you know, if someone says no enough times. But the truth is, like, people don't say no. They wanna be involved, you know?
Can I just say that logo is fire, both literally and figuratively?
Could be. I don't have that much, publishing, I published a book years ago on a university press, and then a chapbook, Brenda and I were on the same, on Tumble, which I guess was university affiliated. And even though I would say they were supportive, but, and again, I have limited experience, but it feels different with Snezana. It's for one, I'm close to her, she's a dear friend, but I think even if we weren't friends, there's a kind of intimacy, and I just feel, I'm not even saying this, like, I feel very safe. I feel like my work is, they really genuinely care about my work, and they want to do whatever they can to support me and support us, support all the authors on the press. And I know a lot of poets publish on smaller independent presses or university presses that are, you know, smaller in scope, but it just feels different. I just feel like they're not gonna pull any stuff, there's not gonna be any manipulative stuff going on. They're very straight shooters, and I really appreciate it. It just feels home. It feels like, you know, I feel like I'm in really good hands, and I feel like it's not like some competitive thing. I feel like we all genuinely want each other's books to do well and be as strong as they possibly can. So it's a really positive vibe on their press.
It sounds like there's some editorial feedback that you're giving them even on poems or on order of poems, and that's rare, even in the small press world. It's usually, you submit the manuscript and they say yes or no. And if they say yes, it's yes, but they don't really give you a lot of feedback in terms of, you know, if you just switch these couple of poems around, look at what effect that would have, or, you know what I mean? It's a yes or it's a no. And it sounds like you're doing more interaction.
Yeah, I mean, actually, Dawn's and Paul's book, they were done, you know, they were some, so it depends on
On the book,
manuscript we get. So theirs were polished. I don't think that we
You didn't have to do
any content suggestion. Me and Robin worked on our books, you know, we gave each other a lot of editorial, I don't know, like we provided editorial work for each other. And right now, Robin and I are reading 2 manuscripts where we were compiling our notes, because you know, they're not as polished, and it just depends. It depends on it. It just, like, one thing that I think casual readers don't know, and they don't need to know, is like how long it takes to complete a manuscript, you know, or even a single poem. And you need help. I mean, I don't know anyone who does it all by themselves, you know. So the thing is, like, with us, we get a lot of editorial feedback before we complete a manuscript, but you know, some writers maybe don't have as much of that available, and that's also where we'd like to step in. That's a tricky thing to do, because you could, if someone submits a manuscript and you provide a lot of editorial work, they could take that work and then publish that edited manuscript somewhere else. So I think that's why small presses avoid that, and I totally understand it. That happened once. Some of us here edit this online journal, Town Review, and I remember one time, years ago, I got an essay, a piece of creative nonfiction from someone who submitted, some stranger, and I really liked it, but I had very strong opinions about, like, some reordering of and then, like, what should be cut, and I took the risk, and I gave them, you know, I have some editorial notes, would you like to see them? Oh yeah, thank you so much. And I gave all the details, never heard back from them. And then I Googled it, and that person published it elsewhere with those edits incorporated. And I don't understand, like, that other publication, it's not like it was really better. It's not like it was, you know, more, it's not like he didn't publish it like in the New Yorker. Yeah. Why? I don't understand people. So I understand, like, why people have to be careful about, like, the kind of labor they wanna invest. So right now, what, we are taking that risk, Robin, right now with two mascots we're looking at, but it's important, I think, to provide that. And just, you kind of sometimes have to just blindly trust people and, yeah, and then maybe like they'll, if you show trust and care and respect for them, hopefully they'll reflect that back to you. Yeah, wanted to add on that.
I mean, I have a question, so poetry, or is that where we're sticking? Are we doing nonfiction at some point? What are we thinking in terms of genre?
We are a press for fired up poetry, fiction, nonfiction, and everything in between. It'll be all genres, anything that we don't have to fact check. So if it's nonfiction, it's not gonna be general nonfiction or I don't know, scholarship or something like that. It'll be creative nonfiction. But yeah, we're open to all genres, and also both to what would be considered high and low. You know, like we're one of the things I'm interested in, Robin maybe not so much, but is this. I taught a publishing class and I learned a lot about how people who write genre fiction, whether it's sci-fi or fantasy or noir, I guess is kind of like a genre fiction, erotica, you know, whatever, mystery. They're sometimes like the pressure that's on them to publish with existing publishers is very unfair, in my opinion. They have to write these pitches, not everyone, but they have to write these pitches where they have to show their mastery of the publishing landscape for their genre and show how they will help market the book. So a lot of people end up self-publishing, you know, and that's not ideal because you do need editorial help. And then a select few end up publishing with more like, you know, genre-oriented presses who then take their pitches and this hard work they put into pre-marketing their work and then use that, I guess. And I'm thinking there's got to be stuff out there that's really good, you know, that maybe belongs to a genre, so it's not really interesting to a highbrow press. But it's also written by someone who doesn't have the time. Again, I'm going back to like the downwardly mobile writers who don't have the time to stop everything and research how they would market their book and make the case, you know, for their why their book will be a bestseller. It's not the point. The point is to put stuff out, to find readers for those writers and just like have a good time, you know. Can we have a good time in the literary world? That's kind of like
Yeah.
a big motivation for us.
This is fun.
Yeah. Yes.
When are you next taking manuscript submissions?
It'll probably be later this year, once we have the 6 books that are, so Dawn's, Paul's, Mitch's, and Chad's. Once those books are when the production is done, and then we have the time to start reading and just figure out. So it'll be later this year. Yeah. Yes.
I read late, so this was probably answered earlier, and I'm very sorry if I'm forcing you to repeat something. Is there a newsletter or something that people can subscribe to stay in touch and keep them on what you're doing?
Yeah, so if you go, and this is, so I said like you could pass me a piece of paper with your email address and I'll put you on the mailing list. Or if you scan any of the barcode codes that are in the gift bag and on different swag, or go to our website, you can fill out a form and sign up for a future newsletter. We haven't sent one out yet, but we'll start soon, yeah. So it'll be like books that are out, events that have taken place and will take place, and news items, stuff like that. So it's all through the website.
And there's a bag over there, I think that's unclaimed, I think
Yeah.
you want, I mean, yeah, there's like seats with bags on them that are unclaimed, claim them.
Claim them,
Yeah.
Yeah, there was, Noah had a question in there.
Yeah, I was wondering, it's been sitting on my mind, you said basically you're willing to publish anything you don't have to fact check. I'm just wondering, so what about the fact checking? Why do you have, what would make you have to what would you have to fact check and why?
Well, if it was general nonfiction, you know, where, I don't know, let's say, I'm making it up, someone has written a manuscript about the history of the libraries in Chicago or something like that, you know. Or whatever is claiming biography, yeah, political,
Yeah.
history, any kind of history, scholarship, you know, you would also have to get some kind of a peer review process to ensure, you know, that it's contributing to the field and all that, like, just that kind of stuff, you know, we just don't have the capacity.
Plus, like with scholarship, when you write critical work and you publish it, if I write a critical essay, I have to pay, and I quote another scholar, I have to pay the publisher of that scholar for quoting them. And then the publisher who's gonna publish my essay has to make sure I did that. So it's a hassle.
Yeah. That is one of the things that we had to work with, so this, another manuscript that's coming out, Mitchell Nobis, he wrote a poetry book, but he included here and there kind of longer quotes from songs and that kind of stuff, and we had to work with him to reduce that to where where we can't get in trouble, you know? There's a lot of copyright and intellectual property stuff at play. But no, you had a question and then Roberto. No, you're just stretching.
Oh, this is so cool. So what you were talking about earlier about like the experience of starting a press, I was kind of wondering like what was like some of the most surprising things that like you found out?
That's a good question, but I'll have to think about it, and maybe it'll pop in my brain when we're mingling, or what has been the most surprising thing? I don't know if you remember me telling you an anecdote. One surprising thing, this is such a small thing, but in your bags, most of you will also have 2 issues of our little zine, but I kind of ran out of time folding them, so not every bag has but all bags have postcards that have like poems and that's our propaganda, right? And we went to LA to this big book fair in March, and we had these beautiful postcards laid out, and I was worried that people would, they were free, you know, that people would grab all those postcards, we would run out of free stuff to give away like the first day. So then we furiously started folding zines to give away, you know, so we could sit at the table and fold and give away the zines. And so the surprising thing was almost no one really wanted those beautiful postcards. It's almost like they couldn't understand that they were free, I think. and we ran out of the zines like the first day, and then had to furiously print more and keep folding every day. So like that goes to show like how much you can predict like what people will be interested in and what they won't be. But the zine was a huge hit at the book fair.
Throw some stuff at the wall.
Throw stuff at the wall, yeah.
I think the other thing that's true, and I've heard this like when you're trying to get published by like a major press or some press that has like real backing behind it, they're like, what's your following on social media? You have to have a following. That does not exist here, because that's kind of gross. Let's be real. That's just gross. So, yeah.
I mean, on the other hand, I understand if you're, because there's, you know, funding is running out, funding is being pulled, it's a very tricky time, and it's always been a tricky business, so I guess, you know, I understand, but it's still gross.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you can, you know, you can also have, it's kind of like how labels used to be, you know, they would have some contracts that they knew they were not gonna make money on, but it's important to release it out into the world. You love it, you know, you think if you love this book, that there will be other people out there, and you'll do your best to find the readers out there. And it's also like, I think like one thing that we embrace is that it's like, it's not a race, you know, we're not really, we don't feel like we're competing with anyone. And this is, you know, the beauty of the print on demand thing, you know, it's always in print, you know, so we don't have to, if Dawn blows up like 5 years from now, we should be able to handle it. And those pre-sales for both of you are going well. You have good friends.
We do have good friends at family.
But yeah.
And you also have amazing titles. Who doesn't wanna buy a book called Once Upon a Ride?
I know.
So in terms of design, because there's a theme here, right? I mean, it's variations on this cover and
Yeah.
this sort of color palette. Do you wanna talk about that?
When we talked to, first we talked to Randy Cochran, who designed the logo, and I don't know if we even gave him any notes. We just gave him the name and told him what we wanted, and then he designed this pen, right, that's on fire, like a matchstick, you know. And so then when we talked to Gretchen about designing like standard book design, that then it would have different colors, each book will have different color scheme. We did ask her to think of like those old-timey matchbox, you know, but of course it's digital design, you know, so it's not like, you know, those old-timey ones were hand-drawn. So it's kind of like, it's hearkening to that, like these dots, you know, that's like where you start the match, you know. But we couldn't actually, this is another thing, like, we couldn't put the dots on the spine, because print on demand is you have to give it you have to give all the elements of the design a lot of give, because there's no human being actually quality controlling how printing turns out, you know, and like tweaking it. So we couldn't do the dots, we had to make it blank, you know, so anyway, but it's like, that was the idea. And they, like, these graphic designers, they blow my mind, like how they come up with these ideas, and they're perfect, and they just have these, I don't have a brain that works visually like that, but I appreciate them. And we wanted to, that's another thing, like we wanted to work smart, not hard necessarily on certain things, you know, so like the idea of having the uniform cover, that takes, you know, a lot of thinking and work out of the process. I've experienced, and I think you have all experienced with your publications, chapbooks and books, where the press will be like, okay, now find someone who will design the cover, provide cover art, or something like that. And that's I feel like that shouldn't be put on the author of the book, you know. It could be an option, you know, but I feel like the press should provide that.
That was always the most stressful part for me.
I know.
Yeah.
And then you have like these books, and some of them look amazing, other ones not so much, maybe some are a little bit more amateurish. And then that creates an unnecessary difference between the titles and in the eyes of the buyers maybe, and stuff like that. So we wanted to eliminate that. Just everybody's looks nice and.
Yeah.
And it emphasizes the collective too, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Time to mingle?
Let's mingle.
Let's
Let's
mingle.
get some snacks. Put the
All right.
books over in there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You did great. Love your work. I can't wait for the book. Just gotta get that pre-order done.